Good evening. I'm Rochelle El Soufi. Your local news starts right now. Years of waiting for the keys to their brand new homes.
And we were expecting it to take, I don't know, quite a while, but 5 years isn't what I was expecting at all.
Some Ottawa homebuyers say a developer has left their lives and their finances in limbo.
I'm devastated. I'm frustrated. It's sad.
We hear frustration from those who had planned to move into their construction homes before the COVID-19 pandemic. Plus, puppets in all shapes and sizes.
It's an exercise in creativity and kind of problem solving because things will pop up that you didn't expect.
How kids and grown-ups in Farrellton have
introduced the city's budget and veto bylaws he thinks go against provincial priorities. The mayor can fire and hire many high-level positions now. That rule doesn't apply to special provincial authority or accountability roles. That's your medical officer of health, the chief of police, or integrity commissioner. Dilkens couldn't fire the city's highest-ranking employee, that's the chief administrative officer, but he can replace them with a hand-picked person without council input. These powers let the mayor introduce their own budget. Right now, city staff piece that budget together with guidance from council. In Windsor, that's typically a budget without tax increases and options to cut the budget by 5%. Now the mayor provides the guidance and works out the budget with staff. Councillors can push for changes. Dilkens can also veto those changes unless 7 of the 10 councillors vote against that veto. Before, a majority vote would be enough to make a change. That veto power also applies to bylaws. The mayor can veto any rules that don't help reach provincial priorities outlined as housing, transit, and infrastructure. Council can override those vetoes with a 2/3 majority vote. Some councillors are against this power, but it's coming either way. 2 I spoke with say it should help the city's housing pledge, 13,000 homes by 2031.
Residents sometimes don't want high rises, for example, development to happen in their backyards because it takes away from the quality of life that we enjoy here in our neighborhood, and rightfully so. So this would then put it forward without that consultation or that sort of input, which allows the modification of the project to come forward and produce a better product in the long run.
You might have a contentious development somewhere that a lot of people don't want, but the mayor could potentially still move that forward.
We're ready to build.
The head of the Windsor-Essex Home Builders Association hopes this helps streamline applications to build new neighborhoods.
I think once that comes through, though, it allows them at the municipal level to remove roadblocks that would help things go through the system quicker.
But his biggest worry right now isn't something that council can fix.
Right now we're in a bit of a lull because of the interest rates. Obviously we had to calm down inflation. I think once things normalize that things will pick back up. I think it just happened so quickly that people are just kind of shocked.
Back at the municipal level, Dilkens says he's still reviewing the powers he's just been handed. A strike by Chatham-Kent paramedics will be a month old on Friday. The paramedics, about 120 of them, are on the job, but they're striking for higher wages to cover insurance premiums that they have to pay. As Dale Molnar reports, Code Blacks in Windsor are keeping them busy working.
Last Friday, there was a Code Black in Windsor-Essex. That means all the ambulances were tied up for a period of time. 4 ambulances were brought in from Chatham-Kent. The union representative for the bargaining unit says they only usually have 8 trucks on duty at any given time.
When we have to do a call in Windsor, it really impacts service times and the things that we can do here in Chatham-Kent. Our system is breaking, it's falling down. Paramedics and administrators are doing the best they can. Our response times, if you look those up, are going up for our critical calls, and that means bad outcomes for our patients.
The official from the SEIU, which represents the paramedics, says the Code Blacks are leaving some areas vulnerable.
So in other areas within the Chatham-Kent district, when they get called, they get pulled out, which means another base has to cover. And under our essential services agreement, ordinarily they might sit between bases on the side of the road waiting for a call. Under our essential services agreement, they actually have to go to the base, which leaves another area completely uncovered.
The union says the ambulances are only being dispatched to major emergencies in Chatham-Kent, such as heart attacks and car accidents. A spokesperson for the company providing the ambulance service wouldn't do an interview but issued a statement that read in part, Chatham-Kent EMS service levels will remain the same and there will be no impacts to our 911 system response. According to the union, Chatham-Kent ambulances are only sent this way for serious emergencies. But the union says that's happened more often in the last month. Paramedics are sent to calls based on a code system, and sometimes the calls end up not being a major emergency. Meanwhile, the union tried to settle the strike through mediation last Friday, but the company turned down the latest offer. Now the two sides will go before an arbitrator in July. That arbitrator will decide whether the strike is impacting the service. If not, the arbitrator could end the strike and send the two sides back to the bargaining table or to binding arbitration.
The Chatham-Kent paramedics will find out on July 11th if an arbitrator will allow them to continue their strike. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The University of Windsor broke ground on a new student residence this morning. The 150,000 square foot building is a partnership between the university and a private developer. The president of the University Student Alliance says that it will go a long way in the housing shortage faced by students.
It's incredibly needed. Our residence buildings are filled, and to have a new place is a new opportunity for students. At the end of the day, our residence is not just the mortar and pestle like we've heard today. It is a place for students to come in, to build community, to build understanding, and to truly open up all these different doorways to more opportunity together.
The new residence will increase space for about 450 people. That's on top of the about 1,000 residence spots currently available at the university. The residence is scheduled to open by the fall of 2025. Home buyers across the country are struggling with high prices, high interest rates, and a severe shortage of homes on the market. In Ottawa, several buyers have been waiting years to move into houses that they put deposits on before the pandemic. They say their lives, their finances have been left hanging. CBC's Nicole Williams has the story.
The site where the 32 townhomes are meant to be built.
It's not the site Alex thought he'd still be looking at. 4 years ago, he signed a contract with Great Wise Developments Corporation. The Fresh Towns project promised modern, newly built townhomes in the Ottawa suburb community of Nepean, expected to be move-in ready by early 2020.
I was excited. It was brand new. I had this option and another option. The freehold in the within the green belt is great to have.
But years later, construction for Alex's townhouse hasn't even started. He's one of 5 homebuyers who spoke with CBC about their delayed homes. We've agreed to keep their identities anonymous because a clause in their contract says the vendor can walk away from the deal in the event of a dispute.
We were expecting it to take, I don't know, quite a while, but 5 years isn't what I was expecting at all.
James signed a contract for a house in 2018. It was supposed to be a first home for his family, but that never happened.
Just last year, I had to move for work, so I'm across the country now. And that was also tough because I have, this down payment into this property, but now I have to look somewhere else.
Our section, which is section phase 3,
John wanted to be closer to family. He also bought properties in the Fresh Towns development 5 years ago, paid more than $100,000 in deposits.
Upset, you're not at that age. You wanna, I'm not young to to wait a lot.
No one from Great Wise agreed to an interview, but in a statement, the company says it's still dealing with the effects of the pandemic, including the labor shortage and supply chain issues. The same reasons it gave to home buyers for why closing dates have been pushed down indefinitely.
I'm devastated. I'm frustrated. It's sad. I'm surprised that in what you consider a first world country, this is allowed to happen.
At least one customer has filed a complaint with the Home Construction Regulatory Authority. It oversees the home building industry in Ontario and says it's still investigating this case. Great Wise has offered to return the deposits for some of the unfinished houses, but the home buyers we spoke to say they deserve better compensation. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Some of Canada's clean tech startups are moving to the United States. They're being lured away by giant American subsidies. Ottawa is now trying to match those incentives to prevent losing investment and skilled workers. CBC's Kyle Bax has the story.
Canadian clean tech startups say it all comes down to dollars and cents. They're prioritizing the U.S., moving staff and resources while opening new offices south of the border. Last year, the U.S. approved the Inflation Reduction Act, known as the IRA, a giant clean energy bill with lucrative subsidies. Those subsidies are attracting Canadian firms.
Not only are we seeing a lot of traction in Houston, in Texas, and in the United States in general, now there's all these incentives that have really turbocharged our economics for our projects. So it made even more sense to actually kind of double down and grow here.
If you are an investor and you want to invest $1 in emissions reductions technologies, are you going to invest that dollar in Canada, or are you going to invest in the United States where you can generate a much superior return right now?
Not everyone wants Canada to offer more government dollars to compete with the U.S. But if the federal government doesn't, experts say the country risks losing investment dollars and skilled workers. The finance minister says Ottawa will compete.
We simply could not and will not accept a universe in which investment is sucked out of Canada to south of the border. And so when the IRA came into place, we understood we needed to level that playing field and ensure that Canada was competitive.
The federal government began consultations on its proposed investment tax credits earlier this month. A report by TD Economics says Canada's financial support for the clean tech sector is producing positive results. Still, it warns the country's continued competitiveness will depend on more investment and a smooth permitting process for major projects. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Turning back to local news, those in need of bait and tackle are going to need to cast a wider net. One of the few fishing stores in Windsor offering live bait is shutting down. Tyler Clapp has more.
It's the end of an era. Strictly Fishing Bait and Tackle in Sandwichtown closed its doors after more than a decade. It was one of the last live bait shops in Windsor. Owner Charles Timchuk says it will take getting used to.
Personally, for myself, yeah, it's going to be a pretty drastic change.
Right.
Some part of that I look forward to. I don't need to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning anymore.
The decision to close comes from the building being out of code. Costs of updating are greater than the landlord could afford. For customers like Dave Rabideau, Timchuk's store was the go-to place for their needs.
He always had good minnows. He always had good products. I bought all my lures. Pretty well 99% of what I bought, I've always bought from Chuck at Strictly.
Timchuk says there has been many changes in his time. Most notably, there is a smaller amount of fishers. He blames rising fuel costs and stricter border crossings. The reason for fishing has also changed for many.
The other most interesting thing that I've noticed over the last few years is that people are fishing for food as opposed to pleasure. So they're really, they're pinching the pennies. This is, it's not a cheap sport overall.
The closure of the store will also present new challenges. Those from surrounding areas may have to go farther to meet their needs.
Now, like the closest place for them to get live bait, they're going to have to go to Cooper's Marina between LaSalle and Amherstburg. And, the guys are coming from Bell River. They don't want to drive all the way out there.
Timchuk plans to shift some of the business online. The new offerings include custom jigs and handline repairs. While Strictly Fishing may be shutting down, its owner will do its very best to make sure that anglers in Windsor get what they need. Tyler Clapp, CBC News, Windsor.
We'll stick with something you might be seeing along the riverfront. It's a rite of passage for every Windsor-Essex driver, getting stopped by a gaggle of geese. Now, sometimes they're leading young across the roadway. Other times, it's just grown geese preferring to walk rather than fly. But what exactly are they thinking before they venture out onto that road? And why do they act the way that they do? Birds Canada helped us get into the minds of geese.
Canada geese are really remarkable birds. And I think as much as they can perhaps pose a problem and leave lots of droppings kind of scattered around, waterfront green spaces like this, they're actually quite remarkable in that they've adapted so well to human-dominated environments. What you have in this situation is actually several different family groups sort of converging, and they're going between food sources, whether it's different areas where there's grass to eat, and also water. Even with all the traffic, they've clearly decided this is a really good place to raise their family. And in terms of dangers and predators, it must be a safe place in terms of a lack of predators. I'm sure from a traffic perspective can be rather problematic, but they should be appreciated for how adaptive they can be in these situations. Canada geese are very visually astute, they're very aware of their surroundings, and they're also really good parents, and they actually are looking after their young. So when you have a situation where one of the goslings decides to have a break in the middle of the road, the parents are aware that there are some dangers around, and they are going to stay there until they can get their chick across. I think as a society overall, we're really far too disconnected from the natural world, and sometimes nature gives you these opportunities to have a little break, and I can definitely see how it would be frustrating if you're trying to get somewhere quickly, but try to appreciate that this is a hardworking family of geese trying to raise their chicks in a kind of a challenging environment, and try to appreciate them because it's pretty neat.
Those young ones still look like baby dinosaurs. Another Windsor staple, the Carousel of Nations. It's all about showcasing the plethora of Windsor's cultural communities. And this year, the Old Festival gets a new contributor. For the first time, Nepal and Bhutan shared a village at the event.
During the pandemic, there was no event like this. And then once I got an opportunity to be a board of director of the Multicultural Council, and then I introduced with all the cultural events what's going on in Windsor. And so during the pandemic, we did only the poster and just other kinds of stuff. And last year, in-person Carousel Nation was presented by Multicultural Council, and then I was just thinking that, so why not first time we are doing the Bhutanese and Nepalese Carousel Nation for first time jointly together to present our culture and diversity.
As Bhutanese, we have some confusing things going on around, as we are Bhutanese citizens by citizens, but we celebrate and we adopt all culturally. We are Nepali. So we want to show the world, the Western world, we are Bhutanese Nepali, and as because of the conflict of interest with the Bhutan government and because of the cultural matter, we kick out from the Bhutan, and we live almost 20 years in the refugee camp. So nobody's like, as I introduce myself, I introduce like Bhutanese Nepali. We have similar culture, tradition, religions, and we practice everything same. But identity-wise, that's our national dress of Bhutan. And those for the boys, those for the ladies, and this for the kids, and the national flag with the dragons. Only by identity we are different, but culturally we're same as Nepal.
Very excited to pop out this weekend, try some more villages. We take a live look outside. Beautiful day. Colette Kennedy comes up after the break. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is our pal Colette Kennedy. Colette, I am in for, I think, one day only here. Disappeared for a while. Back now. Jason's going to take us for the next little bit here as Kat's away on maternity leave. In the meantime here, let's get the best forecast that we can. What are we looking at here so far?
This feels like a throwback. Like
I know.
Did we go back in time?
Yeah, just the television set.
Here we are. Here we are. Well, let me take you through what's going on with our weather, because we're actually going to see, I mean, the heat's building in northern Ontario, and we're seeing it building in southwestern Ontario as well. And we're going to add some humidity in there, or continue to add some humidity in there too. So the current temperatures, with the flow coming off the lake, it's cooler in Sarnia, but that's not the case certainly for Windsor. Upper 20s that we're talking about at the moment. Now the humidex value, see what happened there? It only popped up 1, so it's not a big deal, but that is going to be climbing. We're going to find those dew points rising even in the next 24 hours, and then as we get towards midweek, even further here. So ridge of high pressure, it's very strong and a dominant feature here. It's kind of blocking everything else. So there are things moving in the atmosphere, but much of it having to go kind of around. And any rain showers really that we're seeing further south, those are kind of staying there. Now, as that ridge breaks down, we'll start to see some of those showers later in the week creep into our skies, but not for now. So I want to show you some of the temperatures, like Kapuskasing at 30 degrees. Thunder Bay, all right, a little bit cooler, but Sandy Lake at 29, Winnipeg at 30. And then it's like a seesaw. Things are not balanced. Western half of the country into very cool air. This is where all the heat's coming in. So that ridge is helping out with that. It's also helping out a little bit with the air quality, changing the principal wind pattern or direction. So that is an improvement. Here's the area of low pressure I wanted to point out that's to the south, and that's going to stay there for now. And then as that ridge breaks down, we get some of the clouds creeping into our skies on Wednesday. You know, it's the first day of summer officially, not meteorological summer. That started at the beginning of the month. But we'll see that as we get into the morning hours on Wednesday. Now, overnight tonight, 18 and clear. Tomorrow morning, 21. Because we've got all that sunshine, a very high UV index, but decent for our air quality. And then here we go with that heat coming in. And this does not show you the humidex. It's going to be around 32, 33, Chris, for tomorrow.
Scorchers, I tell you. All right, this is great.
Summertime's coming. It's going to feel like it.
We're back at it. Thanks again for this, Colette. Good talking with you.
You too.
Now, coming up after the break, we've got the fish flies, but there's an algae bloom that we want to tell you about down south. That's next. If you're heading south to enjoy the sunshine and a tropical beach this summer, watch out for what looks like floating blobs of algae. This weed-like growth is blooming in the world's oceans. Scientists say it's a bad sign. CBC's international climate correspondent Susan Ormison takes a close-up look at this problem off the coast of Florida.
We're about 30 kilometers out from the Florida coast in patches of sargassum. It's a naturally occurring algae, but the scale of it isn't. We're looking at millions of tons coming up from as far as Brazil up to Florida coast.
The human nitrogen footprint has grown. This is causing an expansion of harmful algal blooms. And sargassum is the biggest algae bloom on our planet.
It's clogging beaches, suffocating some marine animals, and it's worrying scientists because it just gets bigger every year. There are also metals in the sargassum, like arsenic.
The sargassum material that we're finding that's washing ashore has significantly high concentrations of arsenic. We're paying close attention to it.
Too high levels could be dangerous to people if it gets in the food stock or is used as feed for animals. When it decomposes on the beach, it's smelly and messy and ugly, and it's causing a real problem for tourists along the Atlantic coast. Scientists are watching this very carefully, measuring the temperature of the ocean, which is higher than normal, and also the size of these pads. It is another indication that the ocean is out of balance. Susan Ormison, CBC News, near Marathon off the Florida coast.
Well, let's leave you with something beautiful after that. Some very specialized tourists getting a unique look at one of the world's ancient wonders. And with that, it's up, up, and away for a group of Brazilian paramotoring enthusiasts who took to the air for a bird's eye view of the pyramids in Egypt. They fly about 200 meters above the famous monuments, and some of these units allow for both the pilot and passenger to take in those views. The company that organizes this hopes to encourage more paramotoring tourism. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.